All right, that's recording. We'll get this. Okay, we're up. We are live. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
Doing lovely right now because I feel like this is going to be a good conversation. We both kind of have the health and fitness background going on, but before we start going a little bit too crazy, Lesley, why don't you give a brief background on who you are? That way the audience knows what we're getting into.
Yeah. Well, hi, I'm Lesley Logan. I am a Pilates instructor out of Las Vegas, and I also run several membership companies with my husband. Thank goodness he knows how to be a CEO so that I can just be the ideas machine. We lead retreats around the world, and I'm a podcast host as well for the Be It Till You See It podcast.
Nice. Well, all right. So starting off, first talking point I had was that I think if I read this right, you trained with the originator of Pilates, correct?
Pretty close. I'm a second generation Pilates instructor, which doesn't mean my dad was or my mom was a Pilates instructor. Sometimes when you say I'm second generation, like typically it means like it's in the family. It was not in my family. No, it's so crazy, y'all. If you're like, oh, Pilates, like I'm not into this conversation, you should be, because it is one of the best things you could ever do for any sport you're into, any fitness you're into. But I totally dissed it too. And I was like, I'm not going to do this Pilates thing, but I ended up going and falling in love with it, becoming a teacher, and then living down the street from someone who trained with Joseph Pilates. So I would just go to the studio and take with these people. And so I ended up taking with his training. And so I'm a second generation Pilates instructor because fate would not let me get out of doing this.
Nice. So in the beginning, you were initially, I think I read you made fun of it, like you didn't want to do it, like you thought, then we're back.
Yeah.
There we go. So, all right. So in the beginning, though, initially you didn't want to do Pilates, like you just thought, you made fun of it. I think you ended up going with a friend to.
Yeah. So I was always an athlete. My father's an athlete. My grandfather was a professional baseball player, and so like I just was like, well, you go to the gym and you lift weights and then you run. And if you want to run faster, you just keep running. Like that's how they train people in the 90s, by the way. They have more science around it now. However, so I had gotten a personal training certificate because I thought, well, I'll do that on the side and I'll, whatever. But before I started training people, this girl I worked with was like, you should come take this class with me. And I was like, that is an infomercial workout. It can't do what it says. It's a bunch of BS. But here's the thing it's really crazy. I had just graduated college and all of my friends had moved away or gotten married. So here I was in this town I lived in for 4 years, but all my friends were gone. And so I was like starting over in the same town. And so I went to this class because I wanted a friend. And I thought, well, we'll go to class and then we'll have some avocado toast and I'll never have to do that again. And I loved it so much. I changed the entire schedule. I ran a store. I changed everyone's schedule so that I could go to Pilates every day.
Love it. Love it. So being an athlete all your life and going into Pilates, I mean, and falling in love with it, did you think like, okay, this is some kind of new training for me? Is that why you liked it so much? It was different. It was attacking, I think different body parts. It was like a mind-body connection as well. And it was just something new and creative. And I don't know, because that's how, like, I'm a CrossFit bro. And like, I had the same situation, like all my friends moved and I was stuck in my hometown just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I found CrossFit and it was something new and different. And like, it challenged me still. And I was able to.
Well, there's a community that goes along with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do CrossFit light. That's what I say. It's actually, my coach is a CrossFit coach, but I call it CrossFit light. She's like, this is not light. I'm like, let's just for my own sake. So it was, this is a great question. I love that you asked this, Chris, because I can't say that back then I could articulate this, but I can now, which is, it was probably the first time I felt like I was in my own body. So I grew up in a small town in California and I couldn't wait to leave. I thought, I don't belong here. This is not right. And I made lots of friends. I always say, like, I had some great friends. If they're listening, it's not you, it was me. I just didn't feel like I belonged, right? Like, I just felt like this is not my town. Anytime it was not right. So I moved. And then obviously, as I mentioned, my friends moved away and I just felt like I don't belong again. Like I'm alone again. And in that class, I felt parts of my body I had not felt before. Like here I was an athlete, but I was feeling muscles that were much deeper than like, you're doing like these ab exercises and I'm feeling muscles that are not just the rectus abdomen. I'm feeling deeper muscles. And I left not feeling exhausted. I left feeling like I could take on the day, which typically after a training practice, you're like, dear goodness, where's a bagel? I got to lay down for a bit. So I couldn't believe the difference in how I felt. And so I had to keep going back. But really what it helped me understand is, in a lot of workouts, and this is not to diss anything, because as I mentioned, I do some CrossFit, I do barbell training with my dad, I do Pilates, I do yoga, but as a runner in weightlifting, it's pretty easy to think about anything else. You can think about lots of things. You could be pumping some weights and like think about where you're going to get for dinner afterwards. Like you can do those things, right? When you do Pilates, you actually cannot think about anything but what's moving and from where. And so you really actually have to drop into your body. So if you're chatting and doing Pilates at the same time, you are doing movements and they could still be hard, but you're not having this connection of your mind to your body. And it's really easy to do choreography versus connected work. And so it really just helped me like feel like I belonged in my body, which totally changed the trajectory of my life and literally ended up making me move towns. Cause I was like, oh, I know who I am and I don't belong here. You're right. I'm going to move. So that's kind of like really, it is a little bit deeper than just a workout for looks purposes. It was definitely like more life-changing because it got me to connect to myself.
Yeah. And so again, explain for those who may be green to Pilates, explain like in a brief, vague definition, because I have a vague definition of Pilates,
Yeah.
Yeah. People know exactly like what we're getting into, I guess, furthermore.
Yeah, no, I think this is great because there's actually so many different versions of Pilates now. Since in 2001, people won a lawsuit. So anyone can say anything is Pilates, just like anyone can say anything is yoga. Like no one can stop you, right? So it's really important that we're all on the same page. Pilates is a strength-based workout that's designed to balance your imbalances. It really does help you do everything you already love better. So it is not Pilates or, it's Pilates and. And so if you think of it like that, if you think of it, it's a great way to cross train for any sport, because if you are someone who loves to lift weights, if you are someone who loves to play football or basketball or whatever, if you only train for that sport, that's fine. However, there's going to be some imbalances because every modality has something where you lean into one side of the body more than another, or you work one part of the body more than another. And so when you do Pilates with it, you actually balance those imbalances, meaning if you are someone who lifts heavy weights, if you do not back that up with some flexibility, and I don't just mean like hanging over your legs and stretching your hamstrings, I mean absolutely like strong mobility with connection, you will injure yourself. You just will. You'll tear something someday. I'm sure in your CrossFit gym, you hear about people blowing out knees or doing some of their shoulder. It's going to happen if you do not have flexibility that backs up your strength. And why so many professional athletes have a consistent Pilates practice, I don't mean just like one time a week, I mean multiple times a week, is because it actually helps balance the imbalances they have from doing the sport that they do, but also supports the strength with equal flexibility. So that's what Pilates can do. You can do it on the mat. You can do it on equipment. You can do it in a class. You do not have to only do privates, and you do not have to just like, you can do it on your own, however you want. There's so many, with the pandemic, there's access to everything in any way you want. But if you are someone currently has an existing injury, I'm going to say before you start doing anything on your own, I highly recommend that you actually get permission from your doctor and seek out a private trainer first before you get into anything group or on demand.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the good things about Pilates and what I love about CrossFit too, that if you do have, an injury of some sort, that, you're still able to work out, or you're just anything in general of that nature, that you're still able to do Pilates or CrossFit or whatever, but as long as you don't mind modifying it into a certain aspect, correct? And that way you're still not sitting on the couch eating Doritos and watching Netflix. You can actually still get out there and not further your injury anymore, but still be able to say, okay, I am doing something. Yeah, I'm still.
Oh, you are so correct. I mean, I fractured my tibial plateau in 2014, 2013, 2014.
How'd you do that?
Running. So here's what's so crazy. I had retired as a professional runner. So up until 2001, I was a runner, and I did fairly well. And then I retired for college because the scholarship was not good enough to do. I was like, I can get a job and make more money. So I'm just going to go do that. And then I decided to get back into running. and I was doing Pilates at the time. So it was actually amazing. I had way less injuries. Like I had injuries, and every time the season went in high school, I had an injury by the end of the season that I was running through. And here I was doing a marathon, and the next day, like walked up 5 flights of stairs, no problem. Like no hip stuff, no knee stuff. And so I did that for a couple of years. I was a sponsored runner.
Nice.
Yes, it was
Congrats.
very cool. I know. I was really proud of myself too. And then I had the fastest race of a season and the slowest race in the same season. And I really, what it was is I got really happy. I left somebody that I shouldn't have been dating. And I was like, wow, I really enjoy life and I don't run very fast anymore. And so I decided I just was like, you know what? It's cool. I'm going to retire. I'm good. Right. So here I was, have been injury free for years. And I've been just started dating this guy. He was at my place. I had a late cancellation of a client. I was like, I'm going to run home, make a cup of coffee. He can drop me off at the studio on his way to work. And I broke my leg 2 blocks from my house.
Damn.
And y'all, I'm going to paint this picture. I lived in LA at the time. I lived across the street from the federal building in UCLA territory. So we're talking the medical center, we're talking the school, federal building. Like there's so many cars on the street. When I fell, no one stopped. No one asked to see if I was okay. I'm on the ground and I was like, Pat, really hurt. That did not feel good. And I went to stand up and I couldn't stand up. And I was like, well, that's so weird. Cause like my friends who tore their ACL they could walk, you know, like it doesn't feel good. They limp, but like they can walk. I couldn't stand on my leg. So like from the ground, I'm texting a girlfriend. We worked at the same studio. I'm like, who's your knee surgeon? I think I'm going to need that person. Right. So I like get that number. And then I realized I could squat walk for 2 blocks. Because my now husband, then boyfriend, was not answering his phone because he was asleep. Why would he be answering his phone? I was supposed to be at work. So I squat walk for 2 blocks and I get in the car. I haven't taken my car and I get to the hospital and I find out I fractured my tibial plateau, which is your largest weight bearing joint. What that means is they don't cast you. You just can't put weight on it for 8 weeks. So that means you're not using an entire leg for 8 weeks, which the imbalances are crazy. But Pilates and weight training, Pilates was easier for me to modify because there's so many exercises. We don't have to put weight on the leg. Weight training, I had to do a lot of sitting on some balls, like sitting on a fitness ball over here. You know, I'm doing push-ups with one leg up, but it's crazy. If you can find ways to work around an injury you have, one, you will actually not lose the strength that you have built up, even if it's a shoulder or for me, a leg, because the way the brain works, it still sends energy to the leg or the limb that you're not using. So you still get 30% of the energy going to that spot. So when I was doing check-ins with my doctor, he was like, congratulations for not like losing your strength or gaining weight during this injury so that you could actually, when you can get back on 2 feet, you're not going to have a lot of setbacks.
Nice. Well, what were you thinking though, being a professional runner and then that injury happened? I mean, were you worried about life or just worried about yourself in general? Like, what am I going to do? You know,
oh my gosh.
Like, am I over? Am I done? Am I just going to be the person who just, put me out the pasture? I mean, what?
Yes. All those things. First, like you're kind of embarrassed, like, how did I do that? And then, I will say this, please, if you injure yourself, be an advocate. Do not leave a doctor's office till you have an answer or when you're going to have an answer. And that was key for me. I would not leave. I said, I will not leave until you tell me what's wrong because I can't walk on this leg. And I work with my body for a living, so I need you to find out. They did find an MRI result same day. So when they tell you it takes 3 days, you can get it same day. I said, treat me like Kobe. And they did. And I had the same break as him. So that was very interesting. But to go to your question, in the initial moment, I wasn't so nervous because I was like, I don't know what's wrong and I have to get the answer to figure out what to do next. But within a couple of days of having to ask for help all the time, like I couldn't get my dinner plate to a table, I got crutches. So like, what am I supposed to do? So having to ask for so much help, having to rely on elevators and people to unlock elevators to go in them. And all these things you don't really think about when you're not injured. It really took a toll on my mental health. And I remember having to sit down and just write down all the fears I had. And I had the fears that came out of my head were like, I'm afraid that I'll lose everything I gained being in this industry that I'm in. I'm afraid that I'll never have the body that I had or the strength that I'd built, or all these things. I thought for sure, like, this is it. Now I'm old. Now I'm old and I'm never going to have that again. And that maybe my knee will never be better and I'll have to do surgery after surgery after surgery. And, that is scary. But if you ever go through an injury, I promise you, if you write down those fears and get them out of your head, that was the best thing I ever did, because then I could look back at them and I was like, okay, well, some of these are really ridiculous, but they were in my head. So they felt real, like really big. But once I read them, it really helped let me calm down so I could actually take action at supporting myself and keeping myself healthy so that I could have options at the other side.
Well, it's almost I don't wish anything like that, somebody going through something like that, but you overcame it sounds like, and just changing your mindset. And you knew how to just like, all right, you may have been stressed out a little bit in the beginning, but then like you said, when you wrote them down, you're like, okay, yeah, these are kind of ridiculous. I'm okay here,
Yeah. Well, also, here's the thing. It's really important that we all understand that everything's happening for us. And I know that, like, when someone says that and you're going through something crazy and awful and terrible, you could be like, how is this happening for me? Right. However, that break was one of the best things that could ever happen for me, because I wasn't good at asking for help. And my now husband was literally taking me in the car to my car. And I was just sitting there and he goes, just, I really like to help people. Like, I'm really good at helping. And I was like, oh, I'm terrible at asking for help. So if you could just do the helping part, that would just be really easy for me. But like, it allowed me to like actually need someone so that we could like develop a relationship. Having to ask other people for help meant that I got better at delegating and not trying to do everything on my own. And then now I am known as someone who helps people connect to what I call your thas, which is where your thigh meets your ass. And it's a whole group of muscles that so many people don't use. Even people who are weightlifting in the gym, oftentimes they're pushing from their knees. Yes. They're not using their hamstrings and their glutes. That's why things are happening in their back, right? So I could not connect to this area. It was so elusive to me before my injury, but because of my injury, I actually had to find this area, because if I didn't, my knee would bother me. But if I worked from this muscle group, my knee didn't bother me. And so I got so good at figuring out how to connect to this. I started teaching workshops, and now this is what I do in the industry. I go around the world teaching people how to connect to this muscle group. So like, if this hadn't happened, would I be as known as I am in the industry? I don't know. I actually don't know. Would my husband and I be together? Probably would have taken longer. I think so. I think that really allowing yourself to like see how this could be, putting a pause in like the way you were doing life and making you change that is one of the best things that you could actually use an injury or an unfortunate circumstance for.
Did you pride yourself on your independence before?
Oh, of course.
Was your superpower? Yeah,
that was my
I'm the same way. That's what I do. I mean, like, it's like, I don't like asking for help. And if I do, like, it's got to be like a very, very dire emergency situation where I come out and be like, hey, need some help, bro. Why don't you come? But like almost every other thing is like, I just want to do it myself. And I don't know if it's just, this might be a little soapbox, but we don't have to go down this one, but like trust issues and, maybe childhood trauma or something, but it's just like, I got it myself. I know how to do it.
Are you a firstborn?
Second.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. And I don't know if I was always like that. I don't know when it came into my life, maybe teenage years. I don't know, but I was like, I'll just do it myself. I don't need anybody's help. I'll go through life. And even till this day, I'm a young 36 and still I feel like I told you, like it's a superpower almost, but I was like, hey, I'm good. I don't need help, but it could be one day that it does happen.
Well, a couple things, because I think there's other people listening who resonate with that. One, if you are interested in figuring that out, I would do the artist way. So do the book. It's 12 weeks. Do the journaling. I bet you'll figure out the time that someone failed to do the thing that they said they were going to do. And you're like, I should have just done it myself. Right. Like you'll figure out what that is. And then it's okay. Like I still do things myself, but I really do love delegating.
Sure, I get it.
And then the other thing is Strength Finders 2.0, because if one of your strengths is like mine, it's activator. So I just want to get started. And like, I love my team. They are amazing, but they want to have a process. They want to make sure everything is planned out in advance. We know who's doing what. And I'm like, let me just see if people like it. I'll be back. I'll let you know if they like it before you take all this time. So I think if one of your strengths might be just like getting things done quickly, asking for help can be really tricky, but that's where we get into the strength finders coach would call it the basement, when we're just trying to like do it all ourselves, because you can't go far alone.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've heard that quote before. Yeah. If you want to go far, go by yourself, but if you want to go further, bring a team.
Yeah. I think it's go fast, go by
Yeah,
yourself,
there
go
you go.
further.
Whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's some proverb or some kind.
But yeah, like I've done those strengths finder things. I used to work in higher education, and every year we would do a retreat, I guess, and like that was our thing, like our icebreaker thing. Go take the test and see what your 5 strengths are, and then let's go talk about them. And
Oh, what are you? Do you remember yours?
I know a couple. I think I remember 3 of them: analytical, restorative, harmony,
Mm.
and the other 2 I can't remember now.
Oh, I bet you in your top 10 or so, there's an activator in there of some kind. Yeah, I have significance, positivity, woo.
Nice.
And yes,
I like
yes. Woo is so good. Woo is also like, if you're a high functioning introvert like myself, it's exhausting because you're like, I want to meet those people, but I need to go be by myself.
I wouldn't have thought of you being an introvert.
Well, I call myself, my husband will say I'm a gregarious introvert. I call myself a high functioning. So I think in life, if you want to have success in your business, if you want to be out there with people, you do need to be outgoing. Sure. Right? You do need to, I do agree. But I just have to be alone for like 30 minutes to an hour to just recharge. So I have my own office where I literally just shut the door. Like I'm like, just gonna shut the door and sit in here by myself for a little bit. At Christmas time, something was going on and everyone was doing something. I'm like, oh, they won't even notice if I just go up the stairs and just shut the door and I'll be good. So it's just like, I have to recharge alone. I think a lot of people think that like introverts are shy, but I actually think, so it's actually just how you get energy. And I think it would be terrible to be a shy extrovert. Like you need to be around people for energy, but you actually are too shy to talk to them.
Was it hard? I mean, I know you said you like to delegate now, but being a high functioning introvert, I mean, what did you work with yourself to, it's not easy to delegate for most people, I would think. Nobody likes to be told what to do. Nobody wants somebody telling them what to do. So is that something you had to work on? Just something to took classes on? You read books? Or you just said, hey, I'm going to do this shit?
I think I'm still learning.
Go on.
I think I'm still learning. But you know what I will say? A couple things. One, having my first assistant be a virtual assistant, even though she lived in the same town as me, delegation came through the form of a project management tool. Like I just assign something to that person versus like on the phone, we'd have meetings. I found myself going, can you do that? Is that appropriate for me to ask? She's like, it's very appropriate for me to do that for you. I'm like, oh, okay. So I did. Thankfully, she was a very experienced executive assistant. And I was a very inexperienced delegator, but that was helpful. But I would say like, if you struggle with that kind of a thing, it's one, making sure the people that you're delegating to, that is their strength. That is their strength, not my strength. It's their strength. And so I trust them to do the thing that I'm asking them to do better than I would do it. And then 2 is it's okay. It's their job. Yeah, like I'm paying them to do that. So it makes it a lot easier for me to go, of course I can do this. I'm actually paying them for this. So, but if you do struggle with it, you're not alone and it gets easier. And also I had to ditch perfection big time. And like, if you are a perfectionist, delegation is hard because people are going to do it not the way you want, but sometimes they do it better. But sometimes they don't do it the way you want. You have to give feedback. And I really just wish people could read my mind. They can't. So you have to give the feedback and then they try again and it gets better.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, over the course, it's because I'm a perfectionist, but I think that's part of why I like to do stuff by myself, just because I know I won't be let down and I'm doing it exactly the way I want to do it. But I know there are some things, rather like as far as like being creativity, for example, like, I can see it in my head, but I know I don't have the skills to like, draw it out or graphically design it on Photoshop or Illustrator, whatever it is. But that's one thing I've been working on. I guess that's why I asked you, is that's like, okay, just, it's cool. This first draft. I mean, there's going to be another draft. So let's get it out there, what I'm wanting, and let's just work with each other rather than just, get upset with them just because they didn't nail it on the first try. And then, because I've had that done to me before where it's like, hey, help me out with something. The perfectionist got mad because I didn't nail it on the first try. And it's like, hey, and that's one thing also. And I guess even with this podcast, like when you look at things through another person's shoes or eyes, you're just like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
see what they might be thinking, and now it changes the game.
Yeah. And I think like, first, I think if you want to learn a lot about yourself, you get into business on your own.
Mhm.
And you will learn all the things that drive you crazy. You will learn all the things that make you scared and all the things that like activate you or trigger you in some way. And it is, I found like I can get really good at going, okay, here's what I like that you did. Here's what I don't like that you did. Like being as specific as possible about what I liked and then what I don't like. And then ideally the person is self-sufficient enough to go, okay, let me try that again. And if they're not, that's more of a sign that like I made the wrong hire, because if I have to like literally go, and now you're going to go do it again, that's like, I need people who have like a self-starter kind of thing to them. However, we make anyone who works on our team do a strength finders test so we can make sure that their strengths align with what tasks we're going to have them do. Because we've made that mistake before. We put somebody in a job that's like not their strength and they could sort of do it, but it was like pulling teeth. Not their fault. We put them in the wrong position. Also, sometimes people surprise you. And when things are not my strength, I really do lean into that person and say, here, this is not something I'm good at. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's why I'm thinking it. Here's the goal I have for it. And if you can just let that person, like give them the confidence that they need to move forward, you might be surprised like what they come up with and it becomes better. But when you try to like hover over or micromanage it, oh yeah. And that's so hard. But you know what? Get yourself so busy. You don't have time to do that. That's another, that'll help you.
So how long have you been doing your business? How many years? I can't remember if you already said.
No, it's a great question. I started teaching Pilates in 2008.
Okay.
And I had my own business and then I worked for a high-end fitness company at the same time. I got so busy, I had to leave my, salaried job, which is fine because it was retail. And then if we heard the year 2008, I was going to have to leave it anyways. So I had to leave that in 2009. And I went just full on with Pilates. But in 2016 is when I went 100% on my own. Like I wasn't getting a check from any other company, no health insurance from anyone else. So I've been on my own since 2016. And then my husband came on the team in end of 2019.
So you had a lot on your plate there for a while, 2008 and 2009, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was running a boutique, and then I had like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. I was teaching at a high-end fitness club. And then in the evenings and on my one day off, I was teaching my private business. So I was working a lot. And then I was like, doctors don't work this much and they make more. So we need to make a decision. So I had to figure out, how do I make a leap from a salary job to working for myself? Because when I worked for the high-end fitness club, I didn't make as much money per session. Of course, I was working for them, but they had health insurance that I could get a hold of. So that's where I like led into there. But then by 2016, my own business was doing so much, but it wasn't enough to live off of. And I didn't have the time. So if you're listening to this and you have like a job and a side hustle, at some point you have to make the leap. And my side hustle was like sort of there, but it wasn't totally there. And to give up, $80,000 in like making money from this gym and also health insurance, I was like, how am I going to do that on my own? Like, what does that look like? So I had to really sit down and understand like, how busy could I get before I burnt out so that I could have as much of a runway to leave that and then go on my own. And it didn't take, about 6 months later, I quit that job and was on my own. And it's so crazy. You need less money when you're happy.
I agree. I've been figuring that out because, being in college and stuff and coming out, you think you have to be making like, the 80,000, 6 figures coming right out of college in order to be happy or whatever. But time will tell. And in my experience, there's probably a lot of people screaming at the mic or screaming at us right now. But in my experience, I've slowly found that as like, hey, I'm good. Like, all right, so I picked this up. I don't know when I picked this up, but I heard one time from somebody that the only thing in life that you really need to worry about is that when you walk into a restaurant, you don't have to ever worry about what the bill is going to cost, right? And everything else in life is just bullshit. And once I heard that kind of made so much sense to me. Just like, that is true. I usually go out and eat with a lot of my friends, and usually we don't care what we're eating at the time, just because it's just we're out for a good time. We're here to break bread with one another, but then when I leave, I'm still got a house. I still got a car. I still got, I don't know, 2 dogs back here. I don't know if you can see them, but
yeah,
But yeah, it's like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. I don't, and I like nice things, but I don't need the quote unquote fancy things that say that, oh, you're successful in this life. Like you don't need to be driving the Lamborghini, and which I wouldn't mind if I was, but that, or the fence around your house and the whatever,
Yeah.
the huge house, and like, the perfect life, I guess, the American dream.
Well, and everything is so contextual, like, I mean, people who are yelling at us, they have a different definition of success,
Sure.
or they have a different, like when I graduated from college, I had $80,000 in student loans.
No doubt.
And I was working in retail. And then I got to be a Pilates instructor. Like I wasn't, I wasn't exactly rolling in it. And I just wanted to make sure that I could go out and do things that I could enjoy time with people, or I could go on a trip, wanted to travel. So I think I just was really clear on like, what are the things that I want to make sure I can afford? And then when I was going on my own, it was less about the dollar amount and just like, what are my bills? Like, can I pay my bills? And like you said, can I go to a restaurant? Because like, even though I was married at the time that I was leaving, it wasn't like my husband's income. We lived in LA. Y'all, in LA, we lived on the west side of LA, which I loved. But that is not you can't survive there at 60,000 a year. Like that is a more than six figures and you are barely middle class. Like, so I think this is where everything is contextual. Like if you live in New York, you need a whole different amount of money than if you're living in Oklahoma. And no offense, it's just the cost of living is different. Right. And so while I could have him as a backup, it wasn't enough for us to like actually pay the bills. So I had to get really clear on like, what is the least amount that I can make? And then what's a little bit extra just so I don't have to stress about it? And then can I be happy with that for how long? And it's really, if you can know those numbers, it becomes something you can actually control. And then you can actually work towards in a way that is achievable. And then everything else, you start to figure out what you don't miss and what you do want more of. Cause sometimes you just get in a rut. Like I worked at a high-end fitness gym. So of course I need $8 for a smoothie every day.
And we're back. Oh, it's so annoying.
It's okay.
All right, so the last thing I heard, you were in the high-end gym and you have $8 smoothies every day because you thought you had to or something.
Yeah. So when I was at the high-end gym, I would have an $8 smoothie every day. And like, of course that was so nice and I wanted it. But then when I left there, did I need that smoothie anymore? No, I didn't actually. And if I wanted one, I could make one at home. And so I think we get really caught up in an old lifestyle and we're afraid to make these big steps and big changes. But like it's your life and you just have to decide what you want and what you want to fight for.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I like that saying. And going back a little bit, and I think you said this earlier in the podcast about how Pilates has the mind-body connection and how you're thinking about your movement in order to achieve better, I guess, results or reps or whatever you say it. So did you realize that? Like, because it seems like you've transferred that over into your business kind of ethics or morals or values, whatever you want to say. And did you realize that? And just that, hey, you were training your mind while doing Pilates, knowing that, hey, I'm focusing on one thing. I know how to get better and I know how to get to this step to the other step. And then like, oh, now I'm in business world. Now I know where to, like, you see everything broadly now, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. So, not in the beginning for sure, but I remember hearing someone say how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep, I've heard that. And
I was like, well, what? Because like how I do Pilates, is that how I like cook? Is that how I do these things? And I was, so I started to kind of like think about how that was going. And I was like, oh, it's so interesting. What I was doing was taking this perfectionism of myself and bringing it to my practice and trying to micromanage my practice, my Pilates practice. But when I actually decided to let my Pilates practice be the thing of how I did everything, which is it's a practice, that's the word. It's a practice, not perfect. And I really focus on that mind-body connection. What that did was change things. So one, in the beginning, it made me realize I didn't want to live in Orange County anymore. I wanted to transfer and live in a bigger city. I wanted to have more opportunities for growth, things like that. So that was the first mind-body connection thing that I had that I was able to translate into my life, because it really took me off the mat and made me go, oh, this is what's going on with my mind right now. Then as it kept going, what it has allowed me to do is just take the perfection of everything. That doesn't mean I'm not I'm fully recovered, y'all. I think if you're a perfectionist, it's like always kind of there, but I can allow it to change. So now I have this mind body connection in everything, and why I can go to a new fitness class and figure it out, because I'm not trying to be, I'm bringing this, like, I'm really trying to connect my mind to my body as I'm going through the things. It's why I can tackle certain business things. It's also why in business, sometimes when I can feel that my mind is like super, like my mind is having some anxiety, my body's feeling a different way, I can go, ooh, something's not going right here. And I can bring that all in because I'm so connected to myself. And I really do believe, like, because I was able to connect to myself, I'm able to connect more to others, which is why I can run my business the way that I do. It's why I can teach people that I teach. And I think a lot of us are just not connected to ourselves. We are on a hamster wheel, Groundhog Day. We're just going through the motions. What do they say? Like 90% of your thoughts are the same every single day, so people aren't even like having to think new thoughts. And so that connecting my mind to my body has really helped me move forward faster and in a way that is more aligned with how I want to feel each day.
That's one thing that I've always said, that people are just, especially in the modern world, we're just living off momentum and just going into, like you said, the hamster wheel. And this is one thing I think about a lot, is that, literally I go to work, I go train or coach, come home and do the podcast, and tomorrow, or, the next day I kind of do the same thing all over again or whatever. But I'm always thinking about ways to get off the hamster wheel and do something different. And usually what I find is just like challenging myself. And luckily, when I told you about CrossFit, that's one thing that I found, that like this is my 2 or 3 hours where I can train and, get some thoughts out, talk to my social hour, like the community you said earlier. And it keeps me, kind of getting off the hamster wheel to a certain extent. And then, I guess I do kind of get back on, but I'm also stuck in my routine. But I like routines and I like structure. I'm very,
I love them. Yeah. I love a morning routine. I love a night routine. I love playing with my routines to see like what part of it needs to be longer or shorter. And I actually think that a good routine is not a hamster wheel, because we get decision fatigue, right? So decision fatigue is like your brain actually cannot decipher that what size coffee you want is not as big of a decision as like, who should I marry? Right? Like, or should I agree to this business thing? Or should I, like, your brain is like, every decision has the same weight. And so you only have so many decisions, which is why, Steve Jobs always wore all black all the time. He wore the same outfit all the time. He drank why? The fewer decisions he had to make meant that he had more brain capacity to make bigger decisions, make bigger decisions. And so if your routines are intentionally chosen to support your day, to support who you are, you actually made that choice, you're not just going through the motions, then routine is not a hamster wheel. A hamster wheel is like, I hit snooze because that's what I do. And I'm watching this show because that's what everyone does. And like, I'm in this slow lane in the freeway because this is the way everyone goes to work. Like, that's the hamster wheel. But if you actually like have routines that support who you are, as a whole different day, whole different kind of, thing. And so I think people forget that they have choice.
That's a good point, Lesley.
You can choose to have a routine that actually makes you feel good about yourself.
But I hear a lot that, I don't have a choice or whatever, but, and it almost coincides with almost everything in daily life. People say, I don't have a choice, I got to do this. And it's like, well, you should always have a choice. And like, when you said that people forget they have a choice, it's a good point. And that kind of stumbled me right there, just that, because I never thought about it like that, because I think people get, who do get caught up on a hamster wheel, and, they're always like, looking back on their life in 50 years, I should have did this, I should have done that, but I couldn't because I needed this stable income, or, I needed to raise a family. And I'm not saying there was anything wrong with doing that type of stuff, but they were just afraid to maybe take the chance, and just because they're afraid of the choice of what would have happened either way, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's just go with that. Let's say you have a family and you don't have a choice. You have to work at this job because it affords the house that you need for your family. And but that means you have an hour and a half commute daily and all these things that you don't have this choice. Okay. So you've got these kids and you made this choice because you think you don't have a choice to do anything else. Fine. But how do you want them to think about you as a child? Do you want them to think they never did anything for themselves? They only were exhausted, stressed out, tired. Whenever I wanted anything, they're like, it was no, no, no. Or would they rather say, you know what? My parent got up 15 minutes early just to meditate every day. And that showed me that even if you're really busy, if you have a lot of responsibility on your plate, you can take time for yourself. Like that's not going to be a conscious thing they're going to say, but I can tell you right now, I don't remember my parents ever being happy when I was a kid. And I don't remember them ever taking time for themselves. All they said was no, 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 no. At some point when I was a teenager, they started working out for themselves. They would literally go get out of the house. We want to be alone. Right. Did I go, oh my God, my parents kicked me out? No, I actually go, wow, they were happier parents. I had better quality time with them. They weren't so mean and frustrated and angry all the time when I did see them. There's a distinct difference. And I think if you are a parent who thinks you don't have a choice, you have to do things because you have kids, you need to remember that you are a role model. Actions are caught, not taught, and they are experiencing that. And all you're teaching them is that there is no choice. Once you're an adult, once you have kids, you have to do whatever it is to make sure that those people are happy. And you don't get to do anything for yourself.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about my childhood right there, and I had a pretty good childhood, but I remember there were certain cases, like even when you asked about, we were talking about being independent there earlier, that certain things, and that there was certain things where I felt like I kind of missed out on certain opportunities, especially when I was little, just because of my parents being who they were at the time, and just my situation, especially coming from divorced parents in a very, very rural area. Like no stoplights, nobody really around except all farmland. So all my friends were miles away, and it was almost just like a hassle. This is kind of maybe a little off topic, but kind of a hassle to like, hey, can I go over to my buddy's house or whatever? And like, no, I can't drive you over there right now. So it's like, damn, all right, well, I guess I'll sit here and watch TV then and stuff. And so I don't know if that's where I started to learn, maybe at a young age. But now that you asked, now that I'm thinking about it, was that to go find my own way of doing things and maybe entertain myself, and maybe like, okay, well, if you can't help me, I'll figure something out and just go from there. And I kind of, maybe I forgot where I was going with my point, but that was kind of just thinking about like how your parents were, I guess. And
well,
they didn't do a bad job, but I'm not saying that, but it's just,
I don't, if your parents are listening, I'm sure they did a great job. Mine too. But like, I think, first of all, we're all still working on our stuff. Like if you don't think you have stuff to work on, we all have stuff to work on. If you already worked on it, great job. Congratulations. Like it has taken me a long time to face my stuff, because I used to think, well, that wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. But what it was that it wasn't showing me that I could have agency. It made me think that I could either have this, I could have a lifetime of happiness with money on my own, or I could have a family and I would always struggle. That's like what I got from that. And now as I'm older, I'm like, oh, actually, that's not actually how that was my only choices out there. There were other things. And so now that I know that, I actually have to realize I have to rethink all the choices I made. Because what did I make them off of? But like pretenses that don't necessarily exist. But I think that we tend to blame others or put ourselves in a situation thinking that we don't have any other options. And y'all, your health is like number one priority. And if you do not have your health, I promise you, you will have fewer choices, because you'll have way fewer choices. And so if you can truly make time for yourself, even if right now it's 5 minutes, if you make 5 minutes for movement right now for your health, you make a different choice around the foods that you're eating that fuel you and the routines that you're putting together so you can be who you want to be. That 5 minutes of dedication will turn into 15 the next week. And it will turn into more. Why? Because you're more energized at work, which means you get your work done faster. You have more zest and pleasure when you're greeting people. So your mind is not, you'll be more present. You won't injure yourself as much. Why do we injure ourselves? Because we're often not thinking about what we're doing, and we walk into something, we trip over something. And so I think like, if we can truly just be honest with ourselves about that, we made a choice thinking that was the best choice at the time. And now, I have more information and I can make another one. You can change your life anytime you want. You don't have to wait for the new year. You don't have to wait for a specific day. You don't have to wait to win the lottery. You can actually like figure out something and be more resourceful once you face that you have some other options out there, or get creative and resourceful with what you have options with.
Do you think more people are becoming more conscientious of their health just because of COVID now?
I certainly hope so. I really do.
I feel like in my experience with me coaching and people getting out of the house again and working out, that people more are starting to say like, "Ooh, I wasn't in as good health as I thought I was," and they're starting to ask more questions and listen to more podcasts about health related stuff. So yeah.
No, and also like I think, depending on where you lived, however long your lockdown was, truly made you realize like, oh, that gym that I always said I was going to go to, if I don't go, it could be taken away from me, and I really do think that, that people started to be more conscious about like, I better go now because it could be closed tomorrow, or I could be sick next week, or these things. And so I think it definitely made people, at least for 1 year, be really good about that. I also think like, I traveled the world, and when you go to Asia, if anyone is sick, they wear a mask. That's just what they do. Like if you have allergies, you just wear it. Like it's because it's a whole cultural thing. And I would fly and just look at them all going, gosh, it's a 12-hour flight to wear a mask. That's gonna be so awful. I always wear a mask when I fly because holy cow, I never got sick. And so when you also spend over 2 years not getting sick, you know what I mean? You start to get more aware of like, wow, I was sick more, a lot, and I don't want to feel like that anymore. So I do hope that a lot of people are more able to think about their movement and their health in a different way. I also think that people are becoming a little bit more aware of what they're eating, because all of a sudden, like like you're stuck at home. And I don't know, when I came back, I was in 2020 when everything went down, we were in Cambodia. So we flew in and LA was already shut down. So we went to the grocery store because we'd gone for 3 weeks and we had no groceries. And the only thing we buy was produce and meat from the butcher. And I was like, everything else on the shelf was taken. I was like, people are going to really start to realize that like rice and beans are not exactly like a survival food. And they're not going to like how they look on the other side of this. But I do think that some people became more aware. And then there's just other people who, if you weren't raised working out, like, I don't know, you're 36. So, and you're rural. So you were probably raised going outside a lot. If you were not raised moving and working out, being an athlete, you might have a story you tell yourself. I'm not one of those people. I'm not an athletic person. I can't go to the gym. It must be nice for them. And I love to tell people like, it is brave and courageous to do what your body can do in a situation. So if you go to a Pilates class, you go to a CrossFit class, it is brave and courageous to take the modification, to repeat an exercise that your body can do versus try to do one your body can't. And I think the more we can really encourage people and make fitness fun for people who didn't grow up with it, I think more people are going to get healthier. And so but that just takes time and then feeling welcomed in the community. And it can be intimidating to be around people who've worked out for their whole life.
That's one thing I tell people who, I know we're getting kind of short on time here, but that's one thing I know, or that I tell people who ask me about CrossFit and stuff is, hey man, just leave your ego at the door, just come in and just treat it like a workout. Don't worry about, other people in the corner lifting 225 or doing pull-ups. Just come in and just do your thing. If you got to scale it, whatever. I mean, your day one is going to be different from somebody else's day one, but your day 365 is going to be completely different from your day one. So look at it like that.
Yeah. And they won't make you do them. You don't have to do a Murph every day. You can just do the.
You're right. Hey, just because you see this, you don't have to do it to this extent. I mean, and I know CrossFit gets a bad narrative just with certain things like that, but I mean.
But I think just every fitness modality has a bad rap. They all do, right? Like there are people who think that Pilates is only for women. It's only for skinny bodies. And if you're a bigger body or you're a dude, it's not for you. That's not true. It's not true. It's actually, it was built by a man for men, just so we're all clear. And then, yogis, oh, that's all stretchy, except for my yoga teacher is an ex-Air Force person who was a bodybuilder, who's a yoga teacher. So it's a very strength-based. So sure. I think that first, like I would really look at your goals and I would look at what you have access to and I would just go try it out. If you don't like the teacher, go to the same thing, but with a different teacher. Find someone that resonates with you, that gets you, that has a story with you. And just try, I really hope people just understand that. Like, I hate that Yoda thing. Like there's only do, there's no try. There is so much try. Like try is so important. And I know I just pissed off all the Star Wars fans and I'm so sorry, but I'm telling you, like, if we can just remove that mantra from our head and like actually just try something, we'd be more open and we'd probably see more progress.
I agree 100%. And Lesley, I know I said we're getting short on time, but real quick, I'm trying something out. Do you want to do a new segment with me? Basically, it's called Random Questions with Chris.
Yes, of course. Let's do it.
They're not too weird. They're not too whatever. But it's just kind of like some random ones I have up here. And yeah, they don't have to be long answers or anything. So, all right.
Okay,
cool. All right. So the first one, who's the number one celebrity whose birthday party you'd want to attend?
Oh, Julia Roberts. I think it'd be a lot of laughing.
Oh, She's one of your favorite actresses? I wasn't expecting that. I don't know. I think I was expecting an athlete.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm sure there's an athlete I'd want to party with, but no, I just love her laugh and I like her dresses. And also I grew up watching Pretty Woman every day, which shocked my mom. She was afraid I'd become a prostitute. And I said, no, Mom, listen, she's charged. She said, no, take less than 100. Like, she's gonna charge her worth.
Okay. Pretty Woman every day. All right, cool. All right, excellent. I did not expect that either, but okay. If you had to get a lip tattoo, what would it say?
If I had to get a tattoo on my lip.
I guess you know how people get it on the inside of
Oh yeah. Hello.
Okay. Okay. I guess that's pretty good. Hello. I like it.
It's actually really funny because you'd think I would have something better. I have so many tattoos. You'd think I'd have an idea of what that'd be, but I've never considered a lip tattoo. So I think hello is the best thing I can come up with right now.
I think if I've heard this correctly, I don't know a lot about tattoos, but if you get it on your lip, doesn't it disappear in like a few years or something anyway?
That's what I've heard because that skin changes over quite a lot. I've also I'm known for my lips, so I'm afraid to ever touch them. Like people do that like blushing tattooing where like they tattoo their lips like a pink color. And I'm like, what if my lips got infected and I ruin them forever? Like I won't do like permanent, like makeup, like an eyeliner or the lip thing. Like I'm just like, I'll tattoo other things, but not that.
Oh yeah. There's cosmetic tattoos. Okay.
Mm-hmm. My grandmother had tattooed eyeliner. So
one person, they got it for their eyebrows, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. You can. And if you're a dude listening to this, like if you have a scar in your eyebrow and you don't want that there, they can like literally tattoo a hair there. So you can, it's for everybody. All
right. Last one. I feel like I want to know the answer. If this might be too quick. What is your stance on washing your hands after going to the bathroom?
Oh, always. Come on. But have you ever read the book Educated?
I don't think I've ever heard of it. No.
Oh gosh. Everyone needs to read this book. It's very fascinating. It's like, especially if you grew up rural, like this girl was raised. No one actually knows what day she was born. Her parents just like were anti the government, didn't check in, let them know that they had a kid, this whole thing. Anyways, she wasn't raised washing her hands after the bathroom. And her grandmother was like, you need to wash your hands. And she's like, I don't pee on myself. That's for people who pee on themselves. But when I was in high school, we had to like do a petri dish, to like around the school to like, put germs in, like you would like take a swab of something around the school and you put it in a petri dish and you just like see what would grow. And I did the bathroom, and I'm gonna tell you this, the toilet seat is clean, but the stall door, not so clean. The push door to get in and out of the bathroom. No. So you wash your hands.
All right. That's a good way to take this one home right there. Wash your hands.
Chris, this is so fun.
All right. So if people want to find you, Lesley, if anything you want to plug, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So onlinepilatesclasses.com is where you can do Pilates with me. If you're a beginner person wanting to do it, we can get you an intro class. So just go there. You can find all the goodness. And if you like the sound of my voice and you want to hear more, my podcast, Be It Till You See It. It's just kind of helping people, ditch perfection, take messy action, have some fun in life. And, if you want to go to Cambodia, that's where I do my retreats. So we'll do that in October.
You're a badass person. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. See you, folks. We're done. And